Hello everyone. Well, today we are experimenting with the broadcast software, doing a screencast, and we're going to be going over Ephesians 1 in Greek, not the whole chapter, just one verse. I wanted to give some of my friends and those of you who have become a little rusty at Greek a little refresher on how some things work. And as we talk through the issues, some important details come out. It's not going to be long, just a couple brief minutes talking about one verse in verse 11 here. Look at the very beginning of verse 11, you notice that it's picking up a sequence of thought that's already been going along. The en ho is a relative pronoun which refers back to auto, which is a reference to Christ in him. And then 11 picks up that thought going off of that phrase, is that in whom, being Christ, Kai functions not as much as a connective, but more in the also sense here. In whom also, and then here we have a eklerothemen, which most English versions today translate we have an inheritance. But if you notice the parsing of the verb, it's an aorist passive indicative. Notice the theta eta there, first person plural, and it has active meanings. And so it's probably better if it's translated passive here, which most English versions, again, ESV and ASB, they don't really translate it that way. But instead of saying we have an inheritance, it's probably better translated we have been made the inheritance, or we have been appointed by lot. It's a rare word. You see here on the right that we've done a word search in the New Testament. It only appears one time. However, in New Testament era papyri, there is attestation of the word in its active sense. And so with the passive meaning, it makes sense in context going back up to verses 4 and 5, talking about how believers are an inheritance for Christ. We've been brought into Christ's inheritance. So obviously, Scripture does teach that we have an inheritance, but here the verse is probably stressing the fact that we are Christ's inheritance. And so that's brought out by the passive form of the verb there. Notice also here we have a participle following, and anytime you run across a participle, the first two questions you ask are, is it adjectival or is it adverbial? And the way you tell that is asking, does it have the article or not? If it has the article, it's adjectival. If it doesn't have the article, it's probably adverbial, but it could be adjectival. Here, it doesn't make sense adjectivally, describing somebody, and so it's probably adverbial. In other words, it's saying how the action of the main verb here is happening. So it's describing how we have been made an inheritance, and so it's we have been made an inheritance having been predestined according to the plan of the one who works. Notice here the two goes with energuntas, which is another participle, and here this one goes with the article, so it is adjectival, so it's referring substantively to God, but it's describing him in an active way. Notice it's in the present tense. It's the one who continually works out all things. Here's the direct object in the accusative case. So putting that together, we have been made an inheritance by means of, it's probably a participle of means, functioning adverbially there. We have been made an inheritance by means of being predestined according to the plan of, here's the adjectival participle, the one who works all things, and then the prepositional phrase, according to the counsel of his will. So there's just a few things that you want to be aware of there. Notice especially participles play a big part in syntax. Again, the things you want to remember is it adjectival or is it adverbial? And the adverbial participles, answer the question of how, when, why, those types of deals. The adjectival participles, if they have the article or if they're modifying a noun or a character in the sequence, they're describing that in a further way. That's how you tell those apart. And here we see kind of the means by which the main verb is being accomplished, which is passive, meaning that we are made the inheritance instead of getting the inheritance, in other words. Anyway, this has been Ephesians 1:11, just going through it briefly in Greek, pointing out a couple syntactical things to be made aware of. Thanks a lot to Chris Koo for giving me the microphone. It's very handy and was able to do this and point some things out. If you have any questions or if you want me to go through a different passage, feel free to drop me a comment or anything like that, and hope this has been helpful to you. Thanks.